Alright, hello there, thrill seekers, and that, of course, was my rendition of Black Diamond, the classic by Kiss. And not just my own rendition of Black Diamond, the classic by Kiss, but how I imagine my first band in high school might have played Black Diamond by Kiss. Because Kiss didn't use a big muff fuzz pedal on their guitars, but when I was in high school I did, and I got the reissue, which to me sounds just like the old one I had in high school, really massive and fuzzy, and kind of playing it slightly wrong and everything. That's sort of how we would have done it, I think. So Black Diamond by Kiss. So another reminder, and I'll try to keep these shorter each time. You're seeing it on the screen right now. I'm going to be in Europe next month, in Finland, Germany, Belgium, France, and England. So you're seeing the dates on your screen, and if you want more information and clickable links, go to hardcorezen.info/events. That's hardcorezen.info/events, and then you'll find all the clickable links. Or if you don't want to do that, go below on this YouTube channel and you'll see links, but I didn't know how to make them clickable, but you can just copy paste them. So, I recently watched a Netflix documentary called Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey, and I mentioned it on a video I did a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said, why don't you review it? And I thought, okay, I'll review it and tell you what I think. So, in case you don't have Netflix, or you don't want to watch something, or you don't know what this is about, I'll give you the shortest version I can of the story of this documentary. But since you're on YouTube already, I'll also let you know that you can find a bunch of YouTube videos that truncate it. I just watched one just to remind myself of the details by Ms. Mojo, which is an offshoot of Watch Mojo. It's one of these YouTube channels. And they kind of tell you in 8.5 minutes or however long it is the whole story of the documentary. You hardly even need to watch the documentary after watching the Watch Mojo video about it. So you can look at that. But basically, the story is, it's about the FLDS, which stands for Fundamentalists Church of the Latter-day Saints. I guess they left out the church part. LDS is the Church of the Latter-day Saints. They're the Mormons. And as a lot of people probably already know, the original Mormons practiced polygamy, one man marrying several women, and then when they wanted to be more accepted and make Utah a state, they got rid of the polygamy rule, but there was this offshoot of fundamentalists, Mormons, who still practiced polygamy, and in the early part of the 21st century, I guess around 2008, if I'm not mistaken, sometime around then, they ran into big trouble, and their leader, Warren Jeffs, was arrested, and he's in jail, and that's the story of that. I didn't know much about this group. I saw the news stories when it was happening, but I didn't pay very close attention to it. I kind of thought, well, if people want to have polygamy, then that's their business. Just go ahead and be polygamous. It didn't really strike me as anything that I was very interested in. But watching the documentary, it becomes clear that it was more than just polygamy. It's kind of like one of those things where if you kind of look at it from a long view and go, okay, they're just men marrying a bunch of women. Okay, if that's what they're into, fine. But it turns out that in order to make that sort of thing work, it only works under this, well, they were only able to make it work under these very draconian conditions where there was one man authoritarian rule who was forcing people to marry and forcing women to marry underage, and there's all kinds of stuff, and choosing who to marry and getting rid of the men in the community because basically any human community defaults to about 50% men, 50% women because of genetics, but in a community where you have one man marrying multiple wives, you got to have more women than men, and so they were excommunicating a lot of the men and doing these terrible things to the women. There's a tape that they play at the end of the final episode, so I guess this is a spoiler alert, but they have a tape recording. One of the things about these weird sort of movements like this is the Nazis did this too. They document things like crazy. You know, it's like they want to build up as much evidence as possible against themselves or something. I don't know. But they documented everything, and they found these cassette tapes recorded during these sort of bizarre sex orgies that Warren Jeffs would conduct with multiple, underage women and stuff, and it's all on cassette. And hearing that, to me, was really shocking. But my takeaway from this kind of was sparked partially by something my wife said. She was watching this series with me and saying, yeah, that Warren Jeffs was a terrible guy, but he's really the outcome of the entire society that they created. I mean, what he did, as awful as it was, is kind of the logical conclusion, or logical outcome, or whatever, of the philosophy that he grew up believing in. And he was aided and abetted by a lot of people, by pretty much almost everyone in the community, except for some people who came forward, and they were actually the ones who did him in. And I heard her say that, and I started thinking, well, yeah, a lot of times when cults like this happen, I think what people imagine is going to be the conclusion of the whole thing is based on the Wizard of Oz. I don't know if the Wizard of Oz originated this sort of idea, but it's certainly in there. And in the Wizard of Oz, if you'll remember, the land of Oz has been taken over by the Wicked Witch of the West, and she's an evil lady, and she does bad things, and the land of Oz should be really nice and a paradise for everybody, but she's made it awful. And so they kill the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm melting! You know that scene, everybody remembers that scene. And as soon as they kill the Wicked Witch of the West, everybody's going, ding dong, the witch is dead, and they're all excited and happy, and it's a wonderful time, and everybody's free, and the world is put right again. And I think that is what people sort of imagine will happen in a religious cult like the FLDS, or like any sort of thing, or some of the weird things that have gone on in Buddhism and even in the Zen version of Buddhism. They imagine that the evil is generated by that one person at the center of it, the sort of Wicked Witch of the West analog. In the case of this movie, it was Warren Jeffs, or you could say, Edo Shimano Roshi, if you want to go the Zen route, or some people would say Joshu Sasaki Roshi, or some of these people. And you think, well, you kill the Wicked Witch of the West, and then everybody's happy and everything goes right again. Well, if you watch the show, the Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey show, that isn't what happened to them, and it's not what happens, as far as I've ever seen when I've investigated this, to any of these cults. What happened, spoiler alert, did I say that already? With the FLDS is, Warren Jeffs is in jail now, but he's basically directing what is left. The community is much smaller now, but it still exists, and he's directing what's left of it from jail. He's allowed to have visits, and then these women come in who are probably his wives, and they take notes on what he says, and then they go back to the community and they preach the sermon that Warren Jeffs wanted them to preach. So he still controls them, because some people want to be controlled, and that's a thing. And I think that desire to be controlled by somebody more powerful to whom you can defer all your personal responsibility is present in everyone. I've seen it in myself. I have done this to my teachers. I've talked about this before. I've tried to give them my power and tried to become a submissive, culty underneath Tim McCarthy, my first teacher, and under Gudo Wafu Nishijima, my ordaining teacher. I tried that. But what was unique, well, I don't know if unique, it doesn't belong to just them, but what they did that is actually part of the Zen tradition, should be always part of the Zen tradition, only sometimes it gets lost, is that when somebody tries to give power, you throw it back. So if you are the teacher, I'm kind of putting myself in this position, you throw it back. You say, no, I'm not going to take power over your life. I'm not going to take responsibility for you. You got to do this yourself. Now, when it was done to me by my teachers, it felt bad. It felt like I was being rejected, like I felt like I'd done something bad, and it just felt, I'm trying to give you my power, I'm trying to give you me, but you won't take me, so it feels almost insulting. Now I'm in the position of being the teacher, and from time to time I have people come to me who want to submit and who want to give all their power over to me, who say, I want you to be my teacher. That's what they say usually, and what they mean is, I want you to be my daddy. My daddy as in when I was 3 or 4 years old daddy, the daddy who tells me when to go to bed and when to brush my teeth and everything else. And my job is to reject that. And I've had some hard times rejecting it. There was a person who came to one of the retreats I led here in California who did that to me, who was like, I want to give you my power, and I want to, blah, blah, blah. I want you to be my teacher. And this guy told me a really sad story of his life. So I thought, well, maybe I can make this work. I'm not going to be his daddy and tell him when to go to bed and how to brush his teeth and all that stuff, but maybe I can do this. So I agreed to be his teacher. It didn't take more than a couple of weeks before this guy started getting very demanding and angry that I wasn't properly filling my daddy role for him, and he got real upset, and he started a campaign on the internet, to smear me and to say how bad of a person I was and how evil Brad Warner is and this and that and the other thing. So it is difficult to do that because it's this weird sort of symbiotic relationship, and when it comes to when there's a whole community involved in it, I would imagine that once somebody kind of takes on that role, not to try to excuse all the horrible things Warren Jeffs did, but it's probably hard to get out of it. There's no evidence at all that Warren Jeffs ever wanted out of it, but even if you want out of it, you become trapped by the community who has so many expectations, and you as the teacher have made so many promises to them, and you're trying to fulfill their promises, and you're trying to be a daddy to them, and they're demanding all this stuff from you, and you're taking a lot of responsibility. You're not just responsible for yourself anymore, you're responsible for all these people. It weighs heavily. It's a difficult situation, and it's one I've avoided at every turn. I may avoid it too much. I won't go there at all. And this is why I'm where I am. People in positions similar to me, with enough publications out and enough fame and enough, clicks on the internet and whatever, have built themselves into pretty wealthy and important leaders of movements, and I could have done that if I'd put my energy and effort into that. But I could see the trap that it was. The trap not only for the student out there, but for me. So I don't, as much pity, and pity's probably not the right word, but I lived in Japan where they tend to use the English word pity in a funny way. But as much sort of empathy and stuff I have for the people that Warren Jeffs victimized, I also have a certain amount, maybe not quite as much, for Jeffs himself, who got himself trapped in this bizarre situation and has no idea how to get free. There's a little drama going on in the tree over here. It's a fig tree, and a bunch of beetles are trying to eat the figs, and then some birds were in there trying to eat the beetles, and then the birds were fighting with each other over access to the beetles, and I just got to watch this as I was talking. This weird drama unfold. And there's another one of the birds. I think he's going to make another try. Anyway, so that's that. I'm not saying be sad for Warren Jeffs. He was a bad dude, and he really overstepped any sort of ethical lines that he could have had, even considering the situation he was in. He really kind of went totally overboard. But at the same time, I'm not so keen to look on everybody else who's involved as mere innocent victims of a bad person. They're all part of a situation that gets created and that sustains itself, and it's very difficult to get out of. And then there's the whole issue of karma, which I haven't even gotten into, but there's probably bigger reasons why an individual finds themselves in a situation like this than just merely, oh, I happen to be born here. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to try to get into a big explication of karma. So there you go. If you want to support me starting a cult in somewhere in the Southwest, which I'm not going to do, you can go to the URL that you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are usually my only way of making a living. And even though I'm going to go to Europe and I am going to get paid for most of the events, I don't think all of them, but most of the events that I'm doing in Europe, it's not going to be enough to make a living off of. So I really still depend on your donations. So I really appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free. So you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Stay sweet. Hey Ziggy, you came out with me today. Yeah, it's a lot nicer the weather is today, huh? Not so hot. All right, we're going to go in and edit. Do you want to go in and edit with me? Okay, we'll go do that.